Part 1. As tensions continued to escalate between the two superpowers, the fear of nuclear annihilation became more and more pronounced. Each side raced to develop and improve their nuclear weapons, resulting in a constant state of suspicion and fear. Espionage and intelligence gathering became a critical component of the Cold War, with both sides employing spies and double agents in an effort to gain an advantage. Proxy wars also became a common tactic during the Cold War. The US and the USSR provided military and financial aid to various countries around the world, each seeking to gain influence and control over different regions. The Korean War and the Vietnam War were just two examples of these proxy wars, where the US and USSR indirectly fought each other through their support of opposing sides. As the world watched on with bated breath, the threat of a nuclear war loomed large. The Cuban Missile Crisis, a 13-day political and military standoff between the US and the USSR in 1962, brought the world dangerously close to a nuclear conflict. The fear and uncertainty that gripped the world during this time created an atmosphere of intense suspense and anxiety that persisted throughout the Cold War. Part 2. The division of Europe into two spheres of influence was just the beginning of the far-reaching effects of the Cold War. The proxy wars that followed resulted in countless lives lost, and many countries around the world suffered the consequences of being caught in the middle of the conflict. In addition to the human toll, the global economy was also heavily impacted by the Cold War. Both the US and the USSR engaged in a race to provide economic aid to countries in an effort to expand their influence. However, the USSR's centralized economy and inefficiencies meant that their aid efforts were often ineffective, leading to economic stagnation and decline. As the years passed, the US emerged as the dominant economic power, while the USSR struggled to keep up. The USSR's economy ultimately collapsed in 1991, marking the end of the Cold War and the beginning of a new era of global politics. But the effects of the Cold War continue to be felt today, particularly in regions that were heavily impacted by the conflict. The legacy of the proxy wars, the nuclear arms race, and the division of Europe into two spheres of influence has had a lasting impact on the world, reminding us of the devastating consequences that can result from global conflict. Part 3. The collapse of the Soviet Union marked the end of the Cold War, but it did not bring an immediate end to the legacy of the conflict. The aftermath of the Cold War created new challenges and tensions around the world. In many regions, new conflicts emerged, as countries that had been controlled by the USSR struggled to establish new governments and political systems. The fear of nuclear war remains a major concern in the 21st century. Many countries continue to build up their nuclear arsenals, and the threat of a nuclear conflict is still very real. The possibility of a new nuclear arms race, driven by geopolitical tensions and technological advancements, remains a constant source of anxiety for many people around the world. The legacy of the Cold War is a reminder of the long-term impact that global conflicts can have on the world. The effects of the conflict continue to shape the geopolitical landscape today, and they serve as a warning about the devastating consequences of global conflict. It is up to us to learn from the lessons of the past and work towards a more peaceful and cooperative